Imagine this. It's the dead of night, and the world outside is cloaked in darkness. The streets are empty, and the only sound you hear is the distant hum of the city. You sit alone in your room, the dim light of a single lamp casting long shadows on the walls. The air is thick with an eerie silence, the kind that makes the hairs on the back of your neck stand on end. It's the dead of night. The city sleeps, but you are wide awake, unable to shake off a sense of unease. You reach for your radio, hoping for some music to calm your nerves. Your radio crackles to life. The familiar static fills the room, a comforting sound in the stillness of the night. But then, something changes. The static clears, and a voice emerges from the speakers. But instead of music, you hear a chilling confession. The voice is calm, almost detached, as it begins to recount a series of horrific acts. You feel a chill run down your spine as the realization dawns on you. This is not a fictional story, but a real-life confession. A man's voice filled with pride and cold detachment describes horrific acts of violence. He speaks with a disturbing sense of satisfaction, as if reliving each moment brings him a twisted sense of pleasure. The details are graphic, the violence unimaginable. This wasn't a scene from a horror movie. This was real. The voice on the radio belonged to Edgar Cooke, a man who had terrorized the city of Perth, Australia, for years. His crimes were not just random acts of violence, but calculated and deliberate. This was Edgar Cooke, Australia's night caller, confessing his crimes over the airwaves. His voice, once a source of fear, now served as a chilling reminder of the horrors he had inflicted upon his victims. Cooke terrorized Perth, Australia for years. His reign of terror left a lasting impact on the city and its residents. People lived in constant fear, never knowing when or where he would strike next. He was a thief, a rapist, and a murderer. His crimes were varied and unpredictable, making it difficult for the police to track him down. He seemed to take pleasure in the chaos and fear he created. But what made him even more terrifying was his audacity to taunt the police and the public with his radio confessions. He reveled in the attention, using the airwaves as his personal stage to boast about his crimes. These chilling broadcasts added a new layer of fear to his crimes. Every time the radio crackled to life, people held their breath, wondering if they would hear another confession. They turned every radio listener into a potential witness and every crackling static into a possible confession. The fear was palpable, and the sense of helplessness overwhelming. Cooke's case was a game-changer in criminal investigation. It forced law enforcement to rethink their strategies and adapt to a new kind of criminal, one who used the media to his advantage. It forced us to look beyond the physical evidence and delve into the mind of a killer. Understanding his motivations and psychological profile became crucial in apprehending him. His case highlighted the importance of understanding criminal psychology and the motivations behind seemingly random acts of violence. It showed that to catch a killer, one must think like a killer. In this essay, we will explore the life and crimes of Edgar Cooke. We will examine the events that led him down this dark path and the impact his actions had on the community. We will delve into his psyche, his methods, and the impact his crimes had on Australian society. Through this exploration, we hope to gain a deeper understanding of the man behind the voice on the airwaves. This is not just a story about a killer, but a journey into the dark underbelly of human nature. It is a reminder of the capacity for evil that exists within us all, and the importance of vigilance in the face of such darkness. Edgar Cooke's path to becoming a monster wasn't preordained. It was, however, shaped by a childhood marred by neglect and abuse. Born with a cleft palate, Cooke faced ridicule and bullying. His home life offered no solace. He endured physical abuse at the hands of his father, a violent alcoholic. Cooke's early life was a breeding ground for resentment and anger. He sought refuge in petty crime, a way to lash out at a world that seemed to reject him. As he grew older, his crimes escalated, fueled by a growing sense of power and a desire for control. His early experiences left him with deep psychological scars. These scars manifested in a warped sense of reality and a lack of empathy for others. Cooke saw himself as a victim, justified in inflicting pain on others. Understanding Cooke's formative years is crucial. To comprehend the monster, we must first understand the man he was shaped to be. Cooke's crimes weren't confined to the shadows. He craved recognition, a twisted desire to insert himself into the narrative of his terror. This desire manifested in his chilling radio calls, where he would confess his crimes, often in gruesome detail. These calls weren't random acts. They were calculated maneuvers designed to instill fear and assert his dominance over the city. His voice, a chilling mix of pride and detachment, sent shockwaves through the community. Imagine listening to the radio only to hear a man confessing to murder. The fear, the uncertainty, the feeling of vulnerability, it was a collective trauma that gripped Perth. Cooke's radio confessions weren't just about bragging rights, they were a form of psychological warfare, a way to keep the city on edge and revel in the terror he created. Section 4. Inside the Mind of a Killer, Cooke's Psychology. To understand Edgar Cooke, we must delve into the labyrinth of his mind. His psyche was a complex maze, filled with dark corridors and hidden chambers, each holding a piece of the puzzle that made up his twisted persona. Cooke's mind was not a straightforward path, but a winding journey through his deepest fears, desires, and traumas. Cooke wasn't driven by a single motive, but a toxic cocktail of psychological factors. His childhood trauma, his physical deformities, and the constant bullying he endured at school created a foundation of deep-seated resentment and anger. These early experiences shaped his worldview, making him feel like an outcast, someone who could never fit into normal society. His inability to form meaningful relationships further isolated him. Cooke's attempts at connecting with others were often met with rejection, reinforcing his belief that he was unlovable and destined to be alone. This isolation fed into his growing darkness, pushing him further away from any semblance of normalcy. His crimes, often impulsive and seemingly random, weren't senseless. They were a manifestation of his inner turmoil, a way for him to exert control over a world that had always controlled him. Each act of violence was a release, a momentary escape from the chaos within his mind. They were fueled by a deep-seated rage and a need for control. Cooke's anger was not just directed at his victims but at society as a whole. He saw himself as a victim of life's unfairness, and his crimes were his way of fighting back, of reclaiming some semblance of power. His victims, often strangers, were merely pawns in his twisted game. To Cooke, they represented the faceless masses that had always ignored or mistreated him. By targeting random individuals, he could project his anger onto society at large, making each victim a symbol of his lifelong grievances. He derived pleasure from their fear, their pain, their helplessness. This sadistic enjoyment was a stark contrast to the helplessness he felt in his own life. By instilling fear in others, he could momentarily escape his own fears, finding a twisted sense of satisfaction in their suffering. Cooke's case underscores a chilling truth about serial killers. They often blend in, appearing normal, even charming, masking their true nature beneath a veneer of normalcy. This ability to hide in plain sight makes them particularly dangerous, as they can strike without warning, leaving a trail of devastation in their wake. They often blend in, appearing normal, even charming, masking their true nature beneath a veneer of normalcy. Cooke was no exception. To those who didn't know him well, he might have seemed like just another face in the crowd, but beneath that facade lay a mind teeming with darkness and malevolence. Understanding Cooke's psychology is crucial, not just for solving crimes, but for potentially preventing them. By studying his patterns, his triggers, and his motivations, forensic psychologists and detectives can gain valuable insights into the minds of other potential offenders. This knowledge can be used to identify warning signs and intervene before it's too late. By recognizing the warning signs and understanding the motivations of individuals like Cooke, we can work towards a safer society. Education and awareness are key. Communities must be vigilant, and mental health professionals must be equipped with the tools to identify and treat those at risk. Only then can we hope to prevent the emergence of future killers and protect innocent lives. Section 5. The Cat and Mouse Game, The Hunt for the Nightcaller. The hunt for Edgar Cooke was a long and arduous one. It spanned several years and involved countless hours of meticulous police work. The detectives were relentless, combing through every piece of evidence, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant. They knew that any detail could be the key to catching the elusive killer. Cooke was a phantom, moving silently through the night, leaving a trail of terror in his wake. He was a master of disguise, blending into the shadows and evading capture time and time again. His ability to disappear into the night made him a formidable adversary for the police. The police were under immense pressure to catch him. The media was relentless, and the public demanded answers. Every day that Cooke remained free was another day of fear and uncertainty for the people of Perth. The detectives worked around the clock, driven by a sense of duty and a desire to bring justice to the victims and their families. The public was living in fear, parents kept their children close, and people avoided going out at night. The once peaceful streets of Perth were now filled with anxiety and suspicion. The city was gripped by a palpable sense of dread, as everyone wondered who would be Cooke's next victim. The city of Perth held its breath. Each night brought new horrors, and each morning brought new headlines. The fear was all-encompassing, affecting every aspect of daily life. The people of Perth were united in their hope for a resolution, but the uncertainty was a heavy burden to bear. The investigation was like piecing together a puzzle in the dark. The detectives had to sift through a mountain of evidence, much of it contradictory or confusing. They followed countless leads, many of which led to dead ends, but they persevered, driven by the belief that the truth was out there, waiting to be uncovered. Cooke's crimes were random, his victims seemingly unconnected. This randomness made it incredibly difficult for the police to predict his next move. Each crime scene was a new mystery, with its own set of clues and challenges. The detectives had to think like Cooke, to get inside his mind and anticipate his actions. There was no clear pattern, no obvious motive, which made him even more difficult to catch. The lack of a discernible pattern meant that the police had to consider every possibility, no matter how unlikely. They had to be thorough and methodical, leaving no stone unturned in their quest to catch the night caller. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source, a woman who survived one of Cooke's attacks. Her courage and determination to come forward provided the police with crucial information. Her testimony painted a clearer picture of Cooke and his methods, giving the detectives the edge they needed. Her testimony, along with other pieces of evidence, finally led the police to Cooke's door. The detectives moved quickly, determined not to let him slip through their fingers again. The arrest was a culmination of years of hard work and dedication, a moment of triumph for the entire police force. The arrest of Edgar Cooke was a cause for celebration in Perth. The city breathed a collective sigh of relief, knowing that the nightmare was finally over. The news spread quickly, and the people of Perth rejoiced, grateful for the tireless efforts of the police. It marked the end of a reign of terror. The streets of Perth were safe once more, and the people could begin to heal. The arrest brought a sense of closure to the victims' families, who had waited so long for justice. But it also left behind a city forever scarred, and a justice system forever changed. The hunt for the night caller was a stark reminder of the darkness that can lurk in the human soul, and the resilience of those who stand against it. Perth would never forget the terror of those nights, nor the bravery of those who brought it to an end.